My best dreams are my worst nightmares. Written by luigihiji. Sorry if I pronounced the name of the author wrong. I know this sounds weird. Who in the right mind would love having nightmares? On the usual day, I live a pretty normal life. I have 2 daughters and a loving wife. I work from home in a sweet little office I made from the old school shed behind the house. My wife always gets off work early and goes to work early too. She takes the kids to school and picks them up on the way back home. I get off a few hours late after my wife, so it's the absolute perfect system. Once I'm off, dinner is ready, and I have the entire afternoon to do what I please, and the entire night to myself since my wife and kids need to go to sleep early for the next day. I don't do anything fancy. Just smoke out on my deck, watch TV or play video games and snack until it's time for bed. It's not much, but for me, it's the perfect life and everything I could ever ask for. Then the nightmares started. I hadn't had nightmares in years. It was a normal day. I did my routine and I headed to bed. I tend to fall asleep as soon as I hit the bed. It's almost like a superpower. I have always been able to do that. My wife pokes fun saying I'm asleep before I even lay down. Halfway through the night, I woke up. That is very usual for me since I sleep like a rock. I was choking. It felt like I had liquid in my lungs, like when you drink and it goes down the wrong pipe. But it wouldn't stop. I was gasping for breath, coughing and coughing. My heart was racing, like a woodpecker hitting a tree with its beak. I tried to wake up my wife every way I could, but she wouldn't. I don't remember losing consciousness. That's when I started. I remember the first time way too vividly. My eyes felt like I had eyelashes under my eyelids. I could feel them watering, and I couldn't stop blinking. Every so often I'd be able to pull a couple eyelashes out, but I'd never get relief. I physically felt like I was constantly on the verge of a panic attack. Like I drank 15 cups of coffee and got all of the pump, but none of the energy. I was so awake and anxious, but also on the verge of collapse. I heard a voice screaming no over and over again, louder each time, until my head felt like someone was using it as a stress ball. The pressure was unbearable. My skin felt like it was covered in fiberglass, like millions of paper cuts all over my body, a non-stop itch over my entire body that was also unbearable. I considered cutting every part of me I could off just to make it stop. The air was frigid, the type of cold where you wake up and can't feel your hands and feet. I grew up in Alaska, so I'm familiar with that type of cold. But this was something else. My face felt numb and swollen like it does after a visit to the dentist. I couldn't see due to the irritation of my eyes being in that dream. It was almost like I was seeing myself from all angles. I always wondered if other people had the same in-dream perspective. It felt like an eternity until I woke up. My wife was at work as usual, and it took me a good hour to calm myself down from that horrible dream. I tried to have some breakfast, but I couldn't. I went to work following my routine as best as I could until I felt mostly normal again. I didn't tell my wife because I didn't want her to make me go to a doctor. That evening, the family and I watched a movie until everyone went to bed, and I smoked and watched MasterChef. The same thing happened to me that night, every part of it, and increasingly worse. It went on for weeks. I was able to recover the next day every time, but the nightmares were constantly in the back of my head. I was always afraid, knowing that when I went to sleep, I would have this terrible reoccurrence. Weeks became months, and months became years. Everything seemed less and less real. I was in a zombie-like state daily, knowing I would be able to sleep, but not feel rested, having to live through the worst thing I've ever experienced until I woke up once again. I couldn't work. Every word that came out of anyone's mouth sounded like it was miles away, and nobody could stand to be around me. It came to the point where I was smoking nonstop to get away from reality. My wife stopped cooking me dinner, and my daughter stopped wanting to spend time with me. I felt that was enough and went to a doctor. They told me everything was fine and recommended melatonin. I can only describe this as my own personal hell. No matter who I try to talk to about what is going on, everyone believes I am insane, but shortly forget I ever said anything about it. Just like the doctor did, I tried to go to therapy. When I told him what happened, he asked me if I was taking any drugs, but then I proceeded to introduce myself again as if I just walked into the room. This is the case for anyone I talk about my nightmares to. I decide to give the melatonin a shot. I've never been able to sleep during that day, but figured maybe I can stay awake at night to avoid it and sleep during the day. People who work graveyard shifts do that. Why can't I? I took 25 mg of melatonin and slowly drifted asleep in the living room. I woke up in bed next to my wife, choking like I have every night, attempting to scream, but I couldn't not let out a sound. I even tried hitting my wife, and she would not wake up. Once again, having the same nightmare. Then, something strange happened. I woke up still on the couch, realizing it had only been 20 minutes since I fell asleep, and I never actually went to bed. If it weren't for the tiny detail of me waking up in bed at the beginning of my daily nightmare, I would never have realized that my dreams weren't dreams at all, but instead they were terrifyingly real. I had this suspicion from the beginning, even when I was more or less all there mentally. There were things that seemed slightly off. My wife's eyes looking like a slightly different color. My kids wearing clothes I've never seen before. Insignificant changes that normally you wouldn't think twice about. But at this point, I am so paranoid, every little detail seems important to me. I can feel every minute of every day as if it's been an eternity. It's gone to the point where I can barely tell if my dreams are more real than my actual life, but I can't convince myself my normal life is real anymore. It seems like something or someone is putting me through this. It's the only thing I can think of, and I don't know how or why. What makes me think the most is why they allow me to go back to my normal life in between dreams. Maybe it's to give me a glimmer of hope before going back to what I can only describe as the worst thing I could never imagine. Perhaps it's to slowly break down that part of me, breaking down my mind and making me watch everything slowly go to south, while making me believe it's my one fault. My world breaking apart around me, I have no control, and as I slowly ruin everything good in my life due to the inability to act normal and slowly going more and more insane, I doubt I'll be able to hold out much longer before my mind completely fractures. For now, I'm going to take these small breaks of relief while I'm awake, that I can only now describe as dreams, living nightmares meant to torture me further as the best nightmares I've ever had. Real life is not real for me any longer. I'm convinced everyone is meant to take part in my mentally breaking down until there is nothing left but torture. Events even outside of my own life in the world seem to be breaking down into chaos. Things I never thought I'd live through that I'm seeing on the news almost daily. Nobody will read this because there is nobody but me. A dream is just what you already know in your own head, right? Hopefully one day, when all I am is gone and broken, I can find this and remember who I was.